ये लोकेशंस क्या थे, मतलब एक 1980 के मतलब वो जो दशक था वो ख़त्म जैसे हो रहा था, तो गैंग वॉर्स वगैरह सारी, जब हम लोग कहानियाँ सिर्फ सुनते थे, उछाला जाता था, माहिम के उस तरफ जाओ तो डी गैंग है, यहाँ जाओ तो दगड़ी चाल। ऐसे में हम लोगों को शूटिंग करने का मौका मिला। हम रात में 12 बजे शुरू करते थे। बॉम्बे सेंट्रल इनका घर था और जेनिफर तभी हमें कुछ खिलाती थी, इनके पास बिल्लियाँ थी, और वहाँ से हम इंतज़ार करते थे कि कब 12 साढ़े 12 हो जाए, क्योंकि डोंगरी दो टाकरी का जो एरिया था वो लगभग 2:30-3 बजे तक तो जगा ही रहता था। शूटिंग कब करे भाई, सिर्फ 2 घंटे के लिए दुकानें बंद होती थी। और मैं एक बात बता दूं, वहाँ की बेस्ट बात जो मुझे याद है, वहाँ हम लोगों ने जितने दिन शूटिंग की ना, पान के पैसे भी नहीं देने पड़े। बोले आप हमारे एरिया में आए, आप पैसे दोगे यार, क्या बात कर रहे हो। 2-3 ऐसे इंसिडेंसेस अभी बता देता हूँ, क्योंकि बाद में मुझे शायद माइक नहीं देंगे ये लोग।
मेरा नाम सलीम पाशा है, पब्लिक मेरे को सलीम लंगड़ा बोलती है।
एक आदमी था रात में 3-3:30 बजे, उसने कहा ठंडा पियोगे, मैंने कहा हाँ, मैंने कहा ठंडा पियेंगे। सब दुकानें बंद थी, 3:30 बजे तो बंद होनी चाहिए, मतलब आजकल नहीं होती, 1990 की बात कर रहा हूँ। तो उसने सिर्फ ऐसा पीछे मारा दरवाजे पे, अंदर से आवाज, भाई क्या चाहिए, 2 ठंडा दे। तो ठंडा आ गया दरवाजा खोल के। उसने सिर्फ इतना ही पूछा कि ये पिक्चर जो बन रही है कब तक आएगी। 6 महीना तो लगेगा। अरे यार, क्या हो, पता नहीं कब तक जिंदा होगा नहीं। एंड दैट वाज द रियलिटी। मतलब वी कुडंट बिलीव दैट वी आर लिविंग इन मुंबई। हम लोग तब बम्बई था, इतना वॉलेटाइल एरिया था, पर प्यार कितना, मतलब बच्चों की वाड़ी। आप लोग कभी गए नहीं होंगे, कभी जाएंगे भी नहीं, जहां पर कबाब कमाल के मिलते थे।
But Saeed had been there before. So we shot, when I was working with him, which in Tahir Manzil we shot Mohan Joshi Haziro. So that chawl that you have seen in Mohan Joshi Haziro is in Dotaki. It's called Tahir Manzil. That Rafiq shop that you shot in was actually Rafiq Bhai outside. And at that time, Shahzada and Alamzeeb, I don't know if you know, right? The Karim. Let's not say who.
जो चलते थे सड़क पर।
So one day the big gang lord called me and says, "यार इधर आ." तो मैं क्या हुआ? बोले वो दाढ़ी वाला कौन है? तो बोला डायरेक्टर है। बोले कान के नीचे दबा के दूंगा यार। बोला काय को यार, भाई तेरे को ऊपर नीचे काय को करता रहता। तो मैंने कहा मैं असिस्टेंट हूँ, बॉस वो डायरेक्टर है, वो मेरे को बोलता है मैं करता हूँ, खुद नहीं जा सकता ऊपर। I got to know the city through him, and this is where he's from. So we can start this conversation in many ways, but I don't know if you know Saeed Akhtar Mirza. So let's begin where. How much does your father influence this film?
You know, I watched this film after a long time sitting over here. And each time when I see my own work, I feel like ducking. The reason being that वो खामियां मुझे नजर आती हैं. All the mistakes that I've made. You know, I wish I could have done this way, I wish I could have done that way. But in terms of my father's contribution to the film, perhaps was, I think it was the FTII that actually contributed to my way of seeing. I did see a lot of cinema before that, but it is to trying to find a form which can encompass your, you know, it is not a story that I was seeing. It's an essay. And therefore, when you're writing an essay, how do you make it look like a story? And that's the whole crisis in my construction. So I tried to use brush strokes to understand an idea. Sometimes it turned excessive, at times you felt, I wish I hadn't done it this way. But broadly speaking, अगर जब मैंने आज फिल्म देखी है, I'm not ashamed of it. You know, I feel good. I feel good seeing it.
I think, when you say essay, I think there are two essayists in cinema. One is Anand Bhattacharya and the other is you.
Absolutely.
So, because, there is this connection. You use fiction, you use documentary, but ultimately everything is fiction. And you arrive and use things to come to the truth. But, it's an essay. But you also have, in your film, there is, for example, Raj Kapoor. There is a progressive tradition of Indian cinema. You're not just influenced in the institute. It's not just Godard, Bunu.
No, I'm talking about a cinematic influence, as opposed to the literary and philosophical influences, of course.
Yeah.
I was born at a time where you had an entire tradition of writing and literature and theatre, which came from a very progressive background. It's true. But in the form that you use, of course it's going to reflect in my films. My salutes to Mera Juta hai Japani, but why can't I put another song over there? I need to have a kind of, why this particular song?
मेरा जूता है जापानी ये पटलून इंग्लिस्तानी
I suppose it's got to do with a culture, a civilization that was compassionate, inclusive. It had a vision of a world which was not rough.
It goes darker from Nukkad, no?
Yeah, but the thing is...
this is a darker Nukkad.
Yeah.
In one sense, it could be as an extension when you are at this moment where Nukkad still offers a kind of hope, a brotherhood. There is something going wrong. Locha kuch zyada ho raha hai.
बहुत ज़्यादा हुआ है.
इतना बड़ा लोचा हाँ
But I wanted to have a dialogue with the audience. The thing is, आपने फिल्म अभी देखी है, but the intention was, when you go to see a film like this, it starts from the title itself of the film, Salim Langde पे मत रो. अभी आप लोग ये फिल्म देखने जा रहे हैं. आप जानते हैं कि टाइटल ये है, because it's not खामोश, it's not बेहुदा, it's not शोले or whatever, a single name. It's Salim Langde पे मत रो. जो आपने टिकट खरीद लिया है, you have an idea, a little bit of an idea of the film immediately. Okay, there is a character going to be Salim Langde, and I start, like I said, it's an essay, magar I start from first person. It's a first person film. It's an interior monologue which starts from there. When does it turn into third person? And that's a kind of journey that I try to take, both philosophically and cinematically. I tried to do that shift. And then I thought that, अगर आप फिल्म देख रहे हैं, तो you're actually a voyeur. You are actually witnessing the slow and tragic journey of a young hoodlum called Salim, and you are witness to his death.
क्या कर रहे हो तुम लोग अपने ही भाई पर हाथ उठा रहे हो ये हमारा भाई नहीं है
What do you have to say about it as an audience? And that was the intention. At times I felt I went slightly overboard, at times I went completely overboard, but the intention was very clearly a dialogue with the audience through this film and through the characters of this film, to give you a kind of vision of a world, an emerging city which also reflects an India that's emerging. दूसरी चीज़ ये है कि मैंने very deliberately, Aslam Ahmad is Urdu, a language which has grace, it has a history. which is being erased simultaneously. And where does Salim come from? He comes from a Dakkani tradition. It is not Konkan. It is a Dakkani tradition of a language which, when you come to the city of Mumbai, agar yahan pahunch jate hain, it becomes more and more, in quotes, coarse, in quotes, more direct, less poetic.
अरे ऐसा पढ़ा लिखा जेंटलमैन का तो जास्ती पगार होना मांगता है।
जरूरी नहीं है। क्या है कि मैंने उर्दू अदब में एमए किया है और इसका मतलब है कि मुझे आसानी से काम नहीं मिल सकता।
काय को?
आजकल उर्दू जबान का इस्तेमाल ही कुछ कम हो गया है।
And I'm playing games with the language of Aslam and the language of Salim, and they try to explain history. Itna bada locha. And my God, the way Rajendra said, locha, locha hi tha.
लोचा ही था।
He's forced to use a language, a term, because that's so direct. There's no Urdu word for it now. Locha. Now, you're stuck. Because the poetry is over.
Culture
And civilization.
I mean, it's a bit like when Salim is kind of bereft. So, I mean, at the end of it, I mean, I can see your influence. I mean, I just saw Dharavi again and I could see very clearly the influence of this film on it. But, I mean, I'd forgotten, I thought it was totally original, but, but you can see the connections, all of us.
No, but
when you're lost, I mean, when you're kind of, these kids are lost, bereft of a culture and a folk that's become Hindi film and totally governed by that, and seeing their worldview through that, as opposed to the Aslam character who comes from a certain tradition
and a history,
right?
And a history.
So, I mean, these two people, and when Salim is lost and cannot become Aslam,
Yeah.
because of whatever. So, I mean, that is the tragedy of a boy kind of lost, right? Where will these two go? What is the future for the younger kid, for the Makarand and the Ashur?
It seems very clearly it's downhill. You can see that whole arrow signal. It's just down. It's a dead-end street. Dead end, and it's pretty hopeless. One doesn't realize. I try to bring in history also in a strange way, Sudhir, because the history and the role of history, one doesn't seem to realize the role that it plays in today's times. So that is an entire. एक जीवन था, कुछ सपने थे. धरती बांटने वालों ने धरती के टुकड़े कर. This is the partition of India. धरती बांटने वालों ने धरती के टुकड़े कर डाले. सब पाप अपने, सब दोष अपने निर्दोषों के सर डाले. जिसने कहा सब घर बदले, उसने ये देखा भी नहीं कौन कहाँ थक कर बैठा, किसने कहाँ बिस्तर डाले. It is beyond the death of a Salim. It is an idea, much larger. Not that Salim's death is not important, but there's a larger idea behind it, which I'm trying to grapple with and get to. And I'm using the devices of characters, brushstrokes, history, language, and various cinematic forms to deal with that idea.
And there is the girl.
And the girl.
And the girl who's still connected in some way to a tradition that is
yes.
mauled and totally distorted, but still somewhere there. Again, trapped in some way. Where would she go? I mean. And that doomed love affair, which has a kind of a moment there, but that girl is also kind of seems to travel from Deccan to Bombay, and what happens to what you're saying. I mean,
it's another journey. It's another kind of journey.
Journey which suddenly the coarseness of the place seems to take over. Yeah, it's fascinating. Suddenly the use of a documentary, and suddenly Anand Patwardhan walks in almost.
That's his documentary.
Yeah, I know.
भिवंडी बंबई।
When a mind gets ghettoized, the idea of roshni, the idea of light, it's a very difficult thing to imagine. A ghettoized mind is terrifying. It's a terrifying thing. And little details in the film that आप हवा लेने के लिए कहाँ पहुँच जाते हैं, मरीन ड्राइव पे।
मुंबई का ये एरिया बोलेगा तो टॉप, क्या मजा आता है यार यहाँ पर। हाँ यार, बोलेगा तो एकदम ठंडी हवा।
From the gutters of the city, आप कहाँ पहुँच जाते हैं, to inhale fresh air. और अगर आप देखें आज भी, till today, after 12 in the night, all the roads, all the roads that lead to the sea, from Varsoba to Nariman Point, who takes over that time, is from the ghettos and the gutters, and they all end up there with their girlfriend, their family, and they're all there taking in fresh air. That's all they're doing.
And when you have the father character and that factory, at one point in the 30s, 40s, when it was the freedom movement and the left movement, and if Dange said, Band, the city was, and then from there, now, right, where you can't even have a conversation about it anymore, and most people don't know. So that father is that
He's a kind of link.
Yeah.
He's a link with the past. And he is a kind of, the mills have closed by that time. But in case you don't know, because that entire belt from Dadar all the way to Mahalakshmi, that entire belt was full of textile mills. And then if you went into the interiors of Sat Rasta and that whole belt, it was the looms, textile looms, and people working, and day shifts and night shifts and buns and strikes and poetry also happening simultaneously. And it's all over. It's all over. And that father is that link to those times. And he is, I would call, in that sense, a progressive. Whereas his children have turned lumpen. His child is lumpen. Salim is lumpen. So it's a peculiar mix of history and culture and civilization and language clashing. And in that, I don't know, it's in that mix, you're trying to find dignity. You're trying very hard to find grace. You're trying very hard to say I am, I exist. मेरा नाम सलीम है. And it's at that particular point of time, it's pretty fruitless because he ends up dying. Anyway,
Saeed used to quote an example of Bombay, which I've often used. This Mahalakshmi station. It's raining. One guy walks out with an umbrella. The other guy doesn't have an umbrella. So the guys look at each other, the guy with the umbrella signals. The other guy comes in with the umbrella, they're both walking in the rain. Third guy comes. He looks at him. They say, come. Now all of three are walking. All are getting slightly wet. But that was Mumbai. And now what it has become, so caused you to leave.
Like I said, it's a state.
You're in Goa.
It's a city I don't want to die in. That's it. I cleared my head.
I don't know if you people have seen Saeed's other films. But if you haven't, there's Arvind Desai ke Ajeeb Dastan, Albert Pinto, Gussa Kyun Aata Hai, Mohan Joshi Hazir Ho, Salim Langde Pe Mat Ro, and then Naseem.
Naseem in the end.
In the end, right? Those are the 5 films. But the father character you almost bring again with Kaifi Saab and Naseem
Yeah,
and he's Mohan Joshi in a sense. No?
Oh, yeah.
There's a connection with,
Because always, I just meant at a certain age you are linked with history, and you see history being distorted and destroyed, or being molded. So therefore, what emerges from that, the society that emerges from there, is another kind of society, another kind of being. Whereas those who were linked with roots and civilizations, it seems to be fading away. It's slowly disappearing. वो कहना famous बुल्ले शाह का पास ही लेकर कुत्ते तो ये हो गई तो what do you do? And you've got to live with it. But as young filmmakers and writers and things, you've got to confront it. You've got to see it and reflect it. This world gone pretty awry, and quite a few of these young.
If you were to make a film now in Bombay, which you won't, I mean, you walked away. But supposing you were to make Salim Langde again a part 2, what would happen? I mean, suppose, or you were to write a novel, or however, you were to go beyond this and talk about the city again, because all your films were about the city.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so, but your novels are Letter to Ammi,
which is linked to the city, but yet.
But in the end, yeah.
No, but अगर मैं लिखूं तो I'm writing a book right now. It's called How Banana Is My Republic. So it's a title for a book, and I'm writing this. So we are in a banana republic. So वो क्या करें? And we claim to be, I don't know what we might claim, but a banana republic is an idea. It's not. It's an idea when you realize the paucity of thought, a blinkered vision or a tunnel vision of a world, and deeply moral, deeply patriotic, ultra-patriotic, and right and wrong and black and white, and a lot of concentration on security, a lot of concentration on the police force, and it's all the making of a banana republic. That's what it said. That's it. Basically it. So I'm trying to understand it, and that will be. It also reflects in the city of Mumbai. क्या हुआ भैया आप देखिए कि
तो क्या हुआ मुंबई को? And what was this city that, I mean, supposing nothing had happened to it, what was, I mean, the city that I walked into in '82, the city that that you were born in, the city that you love.
I mean, once we were walking with Jennifer, and I said, I'll miss the city when I die here. Magar, that time has gone. Neither. This is the reason. It did not deliver its social contract to its citizens. That is the problem. If we understand that there's a social contract, every city has a social contract with its citizens. It did not deliver to one critical area of not delivering to its social was specifically the Marathi-speaking population. It did not deliver to them. Everybody else seemed to be creaming off. And that's the rise of the Shiv Sena. Actual historical fact, you may not like the Shiv, it's unimportant to me. But the Marathi-speaking population was feeling left out. Sachai ye hai, and disenfranchised. The social contract was broken, which gave rise to anger. और पहली बार अगर आप देखें तो Shiv Sena was fundamentally anti-con, South Indian and Gujaratis, the trader and the trade union movement.
Suche, saruche,
danda deke maruche. So the thing was that there was a whole journey of the Marathi-speaking Maharashtrian feeling left out, and so it struck a chord. It struck a chord with them, and they turned belligerent.
It's a kind of metaphor now for what's happening in the world, no? I mean,
Absolutely.
In a sense that, how do you grapple with anything now in terms of cinema? And you know, it's the same. So either you can retreat in the past because the present is really complicated.
But to understand it, but what I'm saying is when you're in it, if you do not bring in a far more holistic vision of that event or that with the circumstance, you'll make a fascist film. If you do not give a holistic vision to it, the film can turn fascist. And that is the fear in any form of communication.
The fact that today, when the younger people are making films and that core of humanity in a film, that you know, I don't want to call it morality, but you know, there's a sense of there's a core of something to hold on to a human. That seems like almost passé to a lot of filmmakers, to a whole generation. You make films about characters you won't call home for dinner. No? So, I mean, there is a darkness which the young, we can blame the young, right? We can all go on and on.
I don't think we
Zamana
should.
We should, but we gave this world to them, right? And now they see a failure. They see a failure of na Hindu banega, na Musalman banega, insan ki aulad hai, insan banega. All those nice statements that we made, you know. So the liberal failed. That dream failed. Somewhere you did not deliver, like you say, Bombay didn't deliver a social contract, right? So us as people have given what to the world, or to the young. At the moment, they're grappling with a pretty dark,
But then
situation, they will not walk away, so they have to grapple and make films now.
But
right?
I wish they would then reflect that word. I wish they would reflect exactly that anxiety, which they don't. To me, if you are reflecting your times honestly with integrity, it will be a great film. But don't duck the issue. Don't duck the issue. You are living in what I would amuse. These are very amorphous times. There are no roots. There is a history and no history. Roots and there are no roots. There is morality and immorality. There is dignity and indignity. It's all mixed. And if your films reflect that, you're a great filmmaker. Because you're chronicling your times. Whichever form you choose. It doesn't matter which form you choose. And I don't have to agree with it. But if I know that the filmmaker is reflecting with integrity about his or her times, it'll be a great film.
1925 के आसपास बहुत ज़बरदस्त एक राइट हुआ था और दोनों तरफ के लोग गांधी जी के पास आए तो दोनों तरफ के लोग बहुत परेशान थे। हिंदुओं ने कहा कि मोहम्मद को हम लोग अवतार मानेंगे और मुसलमानों ने कहा कि राम को और उनको हम पैगंबर मान लेंगे। तो गांधी जी ने कहा कि ये राम और पैगंबर की बात ही नहीं है, एक लार्जर पॉलिटिकल इकोनॉमी चलती है इससे, तो ये दंगे इसलिए हैं। इसके बारे में एक जो पॉलिटिकल इकोनॉमी चलती है इसके बारे में मिर्जा साहब आपकी क्या टिप्पणी है?
You have to understand कि भैया ये तारीख जो है हमारी, this entire history of our nation is come from a lot of slaughter and bloodshed. अगर आप देखें तो 1947 जो हुआ था और उससे पहले भी शायद दंगे हुए थे, and there was these movements for power brokers trying to find their role 47 से पहले. मगर this country was born out of immense slaughter, and उसमें अगर आप देखें there was an idea, the idea of dividing India into a Muslim Pakistan and a secular India. This was, why not a Hindu India? Why not a Hindu India? And this question has to be posed today to understand the nature of hate. मैं ये कह रहा हूँ कि हाँ there are other issues and communalism is a great diversion from real issues, but there's also another real issue which is communalism. We tend to avoid that. Of course, there are real issues of भैया बेरोजगारी और महंगाई और जो भी है चीजें हैं. Of course, they're all real. But don't tell me communalism is not real. वो भी है. Now you tackle it. चूंकि मैंने ये तय किया है कि मैंने अपने भारत से पूछा भाई आप लोग, do you know when you read the Constitution of India, अगर आप पढ़ने, it's a document. It's a document. It's a contract जो हम लोगों ने तय किया कि हम ऐसा देश बनाना चाहते हैं, हम ऐसा देश बनना चाहते हैं, ऐसे देश बनाएंगे. It's a dream and a hope. But a country that is born out of such slaughter and basically feudal, उस ज़माने में feudal, patriarchal, slaughter, and to have a constitution which is poetry. How do you achieve that? So what was wrong? The constitution? The people? Who's to blame? Ask yourself this question. सवाल पूछना पड़ेगा मैं.
Hi, Saeed Pratik.
Right.
It's a privilege to be able to watch this film again on the big screen with everybody and be able to hear you talk. One thing that strikes after all these years, 30-35 साल पुरानी फिल्म हो गई है, but आज की लगती है, आज के बारे में लगती है. जो किरदार है वो कंज्यूमेबल किरदार नहीं लगता है. He is not a बेचारा, मजलूम नहीं है, गुस्से में है. It's difficult to like him, but you just can't ignore him. And that failure it's like Chronicles of a Death foretold, right?
Exactly. It's Chronicle of a Death foretold.
चाय पियोगी? चलेंगे.
So from the title से शुरू हुआ है, सलीम लंगड़े मत रो. कुछ तो होने वाला है. तो आप अभी you are going to be a witness to the death of a young man, and there's a history behind this person and a family and a dream and all kinds of things and all kinds of brushstrokes are all happening simultaneously. तो आप, it is, मैं इसके प्रति it's an essay, and I have embellished that essay with characters and events and situations and history and language to get an idea across. And I've used one section of the population for a larger idea. It is the underbelly of a city, either the poor or the disenfranchised or the illegal. That is my canvas to reflect upon a larger idea. Have I made sense, Pratik?
Of course.
एक सवाल सिर्फ ये है सईद की, सलीम एक पॉइंट पे आके ही इज प्रेइंग और वो कहता है खुदा ये बता दे कि मैं कौन हूँ.
कौन हूं मैं? कौन हूं मैं? या खुदा मदद कर मेरे खुदा.
पर वो एज ए सईद अख्तर मिर्जा, बिकॉज मे बी आई नो यूर, बिकॉज आपने कहा था बहुत एक खूबसूरत बात मुझसे कही थी. स्टालिन जब वहाँ पर गिर गया तब आपने मुझसे कहा कि हे यू बिलीव इन गॉड, ऐसे तुम्हारे पास धर्म तो है टू फॉल बैक अपॉन, अब हमारे पास वो भी नहीं है. बट देन व्हेन आई सी इन दिस फिल्म कि वो कह रहा है एक ऐसे पॉइंट पे जहाँ पर हम भी चाहते हैं कि वो बदल जाए, भाई निकल जा, कि जावेद चला गया, असलम मिला है जो तुझसे कुछ कह रहा है. तो ऐसे में वो जो पहली बार जब गया तब कहा मुझे पता भी नहीं कैसे प्रे करूँ, वो भी नहीं पता. तो अब अम्मी को देखा होगा पर फिर भी उसको नहीं पता है. लेकिन यहाँ जाके वो पूछ क्या रहा है कि मैं कौन हूँ, तो वो क्या है, वो कौन?
It is an identity crisis that he reduced himself to Hindu Muslim, And suddenly a man called Aslam comes into his life and shows him a larger idea, a larger picture about a land and about a history.
दुनिया ने सदियों ये कोशिश की कि इंसान और इंसान में फर्क ढूंढें, उन्हें अलग करें। काश एक लम्हे के लिए भी ये सोचा होता कि इंसान और इंसान को जोड़ा कैसे जाए।
And it's exactly after that scene that he enters the dargah. So McCall, who am I? What is my identity? I've always been in the binary of a Hindu-Muslim tamasha, and now he's confused. It's a binary, and now he's no longer binary. He doesn't know what it is. So, McCall, who am I? That was a...
Anyone else?
सर जैसे आपने एक बात कही कि फिल्में अगर होलिस्टिक ना हो तो उनका फाशिस्ट हो जाने का खतरा होता है। सर उन फिल्मों के बारे में आपका क्या ख्याल है जो आज के दौर में हैं और मतलब जिनका इंटेंट ही फाशिस्ट होना है, तो उन्हें आप किस तरह देखते हैं? प्लस
They have every right to make their film. मैं उस पर बहस नहीं, to me personally मैं ये तय करूँगा कि everybody has a right to make his or her film. As far as I'm concerned, अगर मैं ये कहूँ कि ये नहीं बननी चाहिए, वो बननी चाहिए, you are laying the groundwork. I want Anand Patwardhan's film not to be banned. That's it. If I can say that, then allow everybody to say his or her work. But when you use a category of fascism, it's a very simple thing, bhaiya. मैं बताऊंगा, fascism comes from an idea of not questioning. When you don't question and you reduce an entire worldview into binaries and right and wrong, and therefore in that journey it's a very tunneled vision. There's no expanse to it and there's no generosity in that vision. So to them I say that, and simultaneously it is, आज के दौर में it's very profitable, yaar, to be a patriot. Whether you are or not, but to make a film that is patriotic is a flavor of the season, because it makes money. I think it. I don't know whether it does. I don't know whether those figures are right or wrong, or they manipulated. But what has it got to do with art? I don't know. It has got nothing to do with your integrity. And I'm not suggesting that you have to be like me to say this film is of integrity. If you genuinely believe in it, make your film. Make your film. But I will not say a film should be banned ever in my life.
Should not be.
Should never be.
Should never be.
Never.
The answer to a film that you don't like has to be another film or a conversation or something.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
Firstly, thank you, Saeed sir, for mirroring our times. I mean, so wonderfully.
Saeed is different from Saeed.
Saeed sir. So.
Sorry.
Saeed makes me special, in the sense that I'm linked directly to the big man. Straight to the prophet. I'm not.
No, but while watching, I mean, there were so many moments which felt like it was like a commentary on our times, and so,
it is true. It is
extremely
true.
relevant. So.
No, sorry. I'm sorry. He was just talking about my name. That's all.
That's all.
Yeah, Saeed sir. So my question to you is, I mean, as somebody who loves to draw lessons from everything that I watch and see or read, I was wondering by the very end that, if it is that, love or trying to bring hope to people or trying to, tread the right path as opposed to the wrong one, which is always more lucrative, one is always met with an end such as, how our protagonist met in the film. So, I mean, what is the lesson that I am left with? That, is it that in such times, I mean, it's all the more difficult to kind of man up and then just say your truth?
That's a talk about in 2025.
Yes.
This film was made in 1987 or 88, I think. 88.
89.
89 is
It's
released.
but those times were different. It was a rising movement that you could see happening. You could sense it. अगर आप देखें, 1984, you had horrific riots in Delhi with the anti-Sikh riots, which occurred in slaughter and mayhem. You had the screwed up elections of 1987 in Kashmir. It was a rigged election, and the military movement was starting up over there. The Rath Yatra movement was starting up because of the Ram Janmabhoomi movement was starting up in 1986-87, around that time. And you had the Mandal Commission. Now, these are all histories. But in that churning of the north, specifically the Hindi belt, and then further north, that churning was starting, and I was reflecting those times now, then, in 1988. But I did know for a fact then that if you do not pay attention to it, now, that's 1988, it's going to take center stage. It has. I'm not an oracle. I'm not an oracle. But I have my ears pretty close to the ground. I try to understand things, and I try to chronicle my times as best I can. गलतियाँ होती हैं. Times are not perfect, but you're trying to chronicle your times and also having a debate with your audience to sort of provoke a discussion, a dialogue.
दोस्तों, आपने वो फिल्म देखी जो मैंने और मेरे साथियों ने बनाई है, ताकि सारे देश को ये पता लगे कि क्या हो रहा है.
पता तो लग गया है साहब, पता लग गया है.
Today, the reason why it resonates is because it's true. It's happened, it's there, it's in front of you now. And it's become legitimate. Now what do you do? Now it depends on you. Where do you stand? Where do you stand? And I'm not taking sides, I promise you, it's not that you can say anywhere on any side. Provided your view is not binary. Do it. You take your sides. Some people actually believe, like Sudhir was telling me that he had gone to the airport and somebody introduced me as ye tukde tukde gang ke hain. Now it's a phrase. What does it mean? What does it mean to be a patriot? What does it mean to be a Deshdrohi? What are these words? And we're stuck with these words now. That's why I said how banana is my republic. We at what level have we reached where the discourse, we've reached Donald Trump. Sachai ye hai.
But you have to make your film, no?
Absolutely, you make your film.
You make them any way you have to, but if you get sit down on the side, Makarand writes a play every 2 months. 6 months, he's my main source of inspiration. You go to him. You have to do things. So, I mean, you have to, he's writing a novel, Banana is my republic. You don't have to be, directly political all the time.
You don't have to.
Everything is political.
Absolutely. Agar aap jane that this has a political background to it. Obviously. But your story or your film needn't be that direct at all. But to remember, to keep in mind a space in which you're writing and creating, you can't forget that. Even if it's a very personal story of a mother and daughter in a room. If you're unaware of the world around them, I'm not so sure.
Next.
Hello sir, my name is Vaibhav. So my question arose from an amalgamation of the couple of questions that were asked earlier. Here sir. So it's about chronicles of a death foretold and being stuck. So it's like in the initial parts of the film, you said, like, you know it's going to end badly. And in the earlier parts of the film, these three boys are just, during the title roles, are going through these shenanigans. They're punching this huge stone gate, and it looks like they're...
No, they're trying to bring the gateway of India down.
Yeah. And it's like they're punching the status quo, and it's not going to end well for them. That's how, because it's eventually does not end well for them. And you said that's how it's...
Hold on. It starts from the title.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. Yeah.
Not just the images, it starts from the title.
So, I'm just getting to that, how it's completely woven into the narrative, that it's not going to end well for him. You're going to watch him fall. Is like mobility away from the hand that you've been dealt with is not possible at all. The higher change, not possible at all. Can you just chronicle it and yearn?
Very profound question, young man. This film, Salim Langde Matro, came from an idea. There was an idea. Sudhir was there. We were shooting Mohan Joshi Haziro in Rotanki. Again, a very rough area. And we had set up a shot, slightly elaborate, where the entire chawl was there, and we had Mr. Mohan Joshi walk down the chawl. So, subah se doodh lene ja rahe hain. But the entire chawl is shown, and the fellows were walking through. And we had very little money to make these films. So to do a retake was a bit of a problem. So we had a problem with raw stock, paise bhi kam hai. So we set up the shot, and we said, Abhi, Bhisham Sahab, action.
Bhisham Sahab is Bhisham Sahni.
Action. And he starts walking. But we also had planned कि भैया एक चौल के वो दरवाजे पे, the main gate of the chol, keep a production guys there so that nobody enters to disturb the shot. Everything else is planned. So we said action, and he started walking, we're doing it, suddenly, look, stop. We said, I said, cut. So what happened? And there was some disturbance at the front of the gate. And then a young man pushes my production people aside. And he walks down that shore, the whole corridor walks down. And I was telling to Rafiq, he said, shh, relax, don't say anything. My man over there was Rafiq, who was in charge.
Rafiq was the protector.
He just said, Saeed, just stop, don't get angry, just stop, don't say anything. Young man, he walks. He looks at Rafiq, he says, kya Rafiq bhai, kya ho raha hai yahan? So Rafiq said, oh, कोई शूटिंग हो शिवा तो शूटिंग हो रही है. अच्छा शूटिंग हो रही है. वो मेरे को रोक रहे थे दरवाजे पे, तो मैंने हटा दिया. अच्छा शूटिंग, ठीक है. And he turned and walked back. But before I remember I was losing my temper because I said, yaar, raw stock is a disturbance shot. But I was stopped by Rafiq. He just said, don't say anything. And when he walked away, I said, "Ye kaun hai Rafiq bhai?" He said, "He's a shooter for Dawood." It's okay. But when I saw that walk, he owned the world. He was all of 23 years old. He owned that chawl, he owned the roads, he owned the streets outside. That walk gave me the idea. A 23-year-old boy. Now, I looked at him and he walked away, and the idea for Salim started in my head. He doesn't know he's on a dead-end street. He is a product of history simultaneously, along with an economic and political circumstance. But he's also a product of history, simultaneously. And he doesn't know. And by and large, he will never break through. It's an idea for a film. And therefore, the first shot of Salim Langde Matro, he owns that street.
Most will not be able to change the hand that's dead.
Most people. And he's walking on the street and he owns that street. Does it answer your question? Because from this idea comes a larger idea. And the larger idea is because there is an element of being disenfranchised. Where does that element come from? It comes from the fact that if you belong to a certain section of society, you have a choice. What section of society? I make the choice. And then I also have another choice. Will it be a poor mechanic, plumber, or a young punk, a hoodlum? The idea is the same. I choose the young punk hoodlum, which is fundamentally a lumpen element, because in that is by and large another idea. Muslims are violent. The cliche of the Muslim. No, that's the choice I make. Have I answered your question? In a broad kind of way, but that's the only way I can. Because it's a very vast question. And I'm trying in my mind's eye to be able to, not just to answer your question, but to be able to answer a larger idea. That's why I made the film. It had to do with history. It had to do with a political state. It had to do with a social contract. All dismantled in a sense.
It's also an interesting idea that Salim, who is in Bombay,
Yeah.
and grows up in Bombay, is in a dead-end street.
Yeah.
But simultaneously, lakhs of people are coming to this city because they're in a dead-end street somewhere else.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
And here they want to change the screenplay of their lives.
Yeah, yeah.
Some do, So Mumbai offers a kind of anonymity and a hope, whether you're a Dalit or not a Dalit.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So there is something in Bombay which I'm grateful to, right? And it changed my whole perspective of who I was, because it taught me that I was nothing. I was no one. I was in a train. I was not so-and-so's grandson, so-and-so's son. I was in a train. I was traveling. It was sweaty, and I could slip. And
I suppose it's also in a strange way that whether one likes it or not, by and large, I don't know now perhaps, I'm not too familiar. It's a very democratic city.
I think so. There's a lot going for it even now.
Even
though
now,
it doesn't
I hope
belong
so.
to us, but
But it's a very democratic city.
Next question. Anyone?
Hello, sir. I'm Akhil. So, your initial films were emerged as a part of collective, youth cooperative. And can you share any anecdote about the vision of such collective? And second question, so in the time of such cultural hegemony, how you see the idea of such collective in our socio-political and cinematic context?
Talking about Yukt.
I'll tell you what Yukt was an idea. It was an idea which actually started in the film school, where Mani called, talked about, we were coming out from the film school, and he said, why don't we start a cooperative where we make films as a cooperative, and we called it Yukt. So there were 4 directors, 4 cameramen, 4 sound recorders, 3 editors, and 1 actor, Om Puri. So we made this cooperative called Yukt. Unfortunately, the reason being that it was a sense of, to start with a sense of community and solidarity. We made a film called Ghashiram Kotwal, and the first film was directed by Mani Kaul and Hariharan. And then the second film was Arvind Desai Ki Ajeeb Dastan that I directed. And then we ran out of steam. But the idea behind it was solidarity. And in today's times, I believe, I see a strange feeling of solidarity that I sense when I meet Sudhir and his friends and in his house. And they're all filmmakers. It's a very good thing. So that you don't feel alone, And you do feel a sense of biradari. कि आप लोग फिल्म बना रहे हैं और and you can think and the filmmakers are writers and they're poets and it's a good feeling. So that by and large this profession is very fragile and very tenuous. It's a very difficult profession. So when you have people around you, it's a good feeling of being. Yeah, आप अकेले नहीं हैं. I'm not so sure whether a cooperative will help. Coming back to your second part of the cultural hegemony, a cooperative will not help. They can storm into your theatre and they can just two slaps and the theatre close down and the lights will be put off and they'll walk away. No cooperative can help that. Because the state has relinquished power to fringe elements and really perhaps participated in it. I'm not so sure. Or perhaps they agree. Point was, you disagree with the film, fine, make another film, have a discussion. Don't stop a film from being screened. That's our debate earlier. And I don't think a cooperative will help primarily, but it might help you into getting finances to make a film. But उसके बाद क्या होगा? If you're going to fight cultural hegemony, you're fighting an idea which is state-sponsored. तो कैसे रोकेंगे आप? कैसे रोकेंगे? It's difficult. But you'll find ways and means.
But साथ में खड़े होना चाहिए.
साथ में खड़ा होना चाहिए.
It could be spirit, it could be a community, it may not be economic getting together, but it's kind of, I don't like to use the word spiritual, but in a sense, it's spirits getting together and confronting things together. So,
and talking about things together.
Last question.
Thank you for this wonderful experience of this film, sir. I just wanted to ask a very simple question, like something that could even sum up this entire evening. How was your experience while shooting it, and what were the difficulties that you faced during that time while making this film? I will tell you two things about the way I shoot a film. First is my entire film, before I actually shoot, I have my script ready and it's on a wall. And since I mentioned the fact that they're essays, I just seen each square as what function does it serve for the larger idea behind it. So you have an entire film on a wall. The screenplay is written down, but it's put down in little segments, and you have the film. The assistant director, the cameraman, the sound recorder, they're all seeing this chart now, along with the script. But they also see a chart and they're seeing a kind of pattern that's emerging. Now you move into the locations itself. By and large, I avoid a set. And by and large, I shoot on the streets as far as possible. And I also know I don't have the money to pay the state government the cost of shooting on a street. It's very prohibitive. So I never take permission from them. But I shoot on the street.
Thank you so much, Ron and VHS and everybody for organizing.